Title: The Truth Wears a Badge. Part 1. The Laugh That Lingered. There are moments in a kid's life that hang in the air long after they happen. Awkward, sticky, and way heavier than they should be. For 8-year-old Camden Rivers, that moment came during Career Week in MS. Landry's third-grade classroom at Oakview Elementary in Mesa, Arizona. Career Week was one of those annual traditions kids actually looked forward to. It meant a break from spelling quizzes and multiplication drills, replaced with parents parading in a class like heroes, showing off uniforms, laptops, tools, or pastries. Kids would sit crisscross applesauce on the reading rug, eyes wide, sometimes whispering questions to each other or trying not to giggle when someone's dad used a funny voice. Camden had been waiting for this day all week. Small for his age, but impossibly curious, Camden had the kind of bright-eyed intensity that made every word out of his mouth sound like a mini TED Talk. He'd practiced what he was going to say for days, how his dad worked at NASA, what he did, and why it was the coolest job ever. He'd drawn diagrams. He had jokes. He even knew how to pronounce aerospace telemetry. So when Mr. Taylor, mid-40s, khakis, thinning hair, and a polo shirt tucked a little too tightly, asked the class to go around and share what their parents did, Camden sat up straight. His chest puffed out. This was his moment. "My dad," Camden said proudly, "works at NASA." A pause followed. Not the kind where people are processing something amazing. The kind where they don't believe you. One kid snorted. Another whispered, "Yeah, right." But it was Mr. Taylor's reaction that hit the hardest. He chuckled. Not a big belly laugh. The kind that feels like static in the air, quiet, dismissive, a little condescending. The kind that makes you want to disappear. "NASA, huh?" Mr. Taylor said, raising an eyebrow like Camden had just claimed his dad tames dragons for a living. "That's quite the imagination, Cam. Maybe next time, let's aim for something a little more realistic." A few kids giggled. One girl repeated, "More realistic," under her breath, like it was the best punchline she'd ever heard. Camden froze. The words he'd been rehearsing for days slipped away. His fingers, which had been excitedly gesturing a minute ago, now curled into little fists. He stared at the rug. He didn't say another word. Mr. Taylor moved on without a pause. But someone noticed. Layla Winters, who sat next to Camden, leaned over and whispered, "I believe you." He gave her a small nod, but didn't look up. The rest of the morning blurred. Parents came in. Laptops were opened. A firefighter let kids try on his helmet. The room smelled like sugar cookies when a baker mom handed out samples. But Camden sat still, quiet, shrinking into himself, like someone trying not to be seen. At lunch, Camden barely touched his sandwich. He didn't laugh when the boys started doing silly four-night dances near the vending machines. He didn't race to the swings like he usually did. Because when someone you look up to dismisses your truth with a smirk, it does something to you. And what Mr. Taylor didn't know, what none of the kids really knew, was that Camden hadn't made anything up. His dad, Dr. Aaron Rivers, really did work at NASA. He was an aerospace systems engineer, currently deep into a Mars communication relay project. He wore a NASA badge every single day, and Camden had never been prouder of anyone in his life. 3 days before Career Week, Camden had been in the garage with his dad. They were sorting through bins of wires and gear. Well, Aaron was. Camden mostly sat on an overturned crate, sipping a Capri Sun and firing off questions like rapid fire. "Wait, so how long does it take for the rover to send a message back to Earth?" Aaron didn't even look up. "Depends on where Mars is. Could be anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes. Camden's eyes widened. "So, it's like texting with really bad service?" Aaron laughed. "Exactly. Space has terrible Wi-Fi." Moments like that were Camden's favorite. No lectures. No PowerPoint. Just his dad, making science make sense. Turning satellites into jokes and orbit paths into stories. That night, Camden pulled one of his dad's NASA folders off his desk and laid it on his bed like it was treasure. "Can I bring this to school for Career Week?" Aaron looked over. "That's got a few classified pages, buddy. Not even one little page." Aaron smiled, sitting beside him. "You don't need the folder. Just use your voice. Tell them what I do." Tell them you're proud. Camden hesitated. What if they don't believe me? Aaron leaned back, thoughtful. Then that's their problem, not yours. But what if they laugh? Aaron paused. His voice softened. If they laugh, you keep your head up. The truth doesn't need applause, Cam. It just needs to be said. Camden nodded slowly. He didn't fully get it, but he trusted it. That night, he scribbled down everything he wanted to say, words like orbit, spacecraft, and data relay. He even drew a cartoon of his dad holding Earth in one hand and a satellite in the other. He practiced in front of the mirror. He rehearsed the space Wi-Fi joke 3 times, and it all vanished with one chuckle. Camden didn't tell anyone what happened. At recess, he quietly ripped up his drawing and shoved it into the bottom of his backpack. He just wanted the day to end. Dr. Aaron Rivers, meanwhile, had spent the morning in back-to-back meetings prepping for his Career Week presentation. He put together a fun slideshow, rockets, cartoons, Mars memes. But his favorite slide was the last one, a picture of him and Camden side by side at NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, wearing matching badges and grinning ear to ear. But back at Oakview Elementary, Camden wasn't grinning anymore. And the truth? It wasn't enough. Not yet. Part 2, when truth walks in. The afternoon sun cast a dusty glow across the classroom as the final hour of Career Week crept closer. Camden hadn't spoken much since lunch. He kept glancing at the clock, then the door, then back at his shoes, his fingers tapping a restless rhythm against the sides of his desk. Mr. Taylor stood by the classroom entrance, clipboard in hand, calling parents in one at a time. He'd regained his rhythm after lunch, or at least pretended to. Jokes returned. That teacher energy returned. But every once in a while, his eyes flicked toward Camden, and he'd hesitate. Only for a second, but it was there, like something unspoken sat between them now. Camden barely noticed. He was too busy praying. Please let Dad show up. Please let him get here. Please don't let him cancel or get caught in traffic or forget. Because now, this wasn't just about pride. It was about proving something. Chloe's mom passed out cupcakes and tiny cards shaped like cookies from her bakery. Thomas's uncle, a mechanic, let kids pass around a tire pressure gauge like it was ancient treasure. Kids clapped. They asked questions. They laughed. Camden didn't. His palms were sweating. His knees bounced under his desk. His eyes kept darting to the door. What if he doesn't come? What if Mr. Taylor was right? What if? He shook his head. No, don't do that. Not now. For parents to go. 15 minutes left. Mr. Taylor glanced down at his clipboard. Up next we have. But he didn't finish. The door had already opened. Dr. Aaron Rivers stepped into the room like the calm before a rocket launch. Slow, sure, composed. He wore a navy blazer, a crisp white shirt, dark slacks, and clipped to his chest, just below the lapel, was the unmistakable NASA badge. His salt and pepper hair was trimmed close. His expression was steady, serious, but when his eyes found Camden, something shifted. The corner of his mouth curved ever so slightly. Camden sat up straighter than he had all day. His chair scraped against the tile. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Aaron gave him a nod. Quiet. Strong. Then to the room. Hello. I am Dr. Rivers. I design spacecraft. Silence. But not confused silence. Not mocking silence. Realization. Mr. Taylor blinked. His lips parted, but nothing came out. He stood stiffly at the front of the room, clipboard suddenly feeling too heavy in his hands. Aaron didn't bring props. Didn't need flashy videos or handouts. His presence was enough. He didn't rush. He clicked a remote, and the projector lit up. The first image, satellites orbiting Mars. The second, a large relay station. The third, a photo of him and Camden, both in NASA gear, grinning like kids with a secret. You guys ever wonder how we talk to robots millions of miles away? Aaron asked. A few kids nodded wide-eyed. We build the systems that make that possible. Think of it like giving the Mars rovers a cell phone, except the reception is really, really bad. Laughter. Even Camden smiled. A hand shot up. Is it like a space iPhone? Aaron grinned. Exactly. Except we don't get a text emojis back. Kids giggled. Even Layla elbowed Camden with a grin. Told you so. Mister. Taylor stood off to the side, quiet now. His jaw worked slightly, like he wanted to say something, but he didn't. He just kept glancing from Aaron to Camden, like watching someone rewrite a narrative in real time. Aaron kept going. He showed the data relays. He explained how Mars calls home. He never once mentioned what had happened earlier. He didn't need to. But before wrapping up, he looked directly at the class. Earlier, he said, his voice calm but clear, I heard someone say that working at NASA might be unrealistic. The word lingered. Aaron turned to Camden. Well, he said, smiling now, I guess some people just have different definitions of realistic. Camden lit up like a satellite catching sunlight. His shoulders eased. His fists unclenched. For the first time all day, he looked around, and what he saw wasn't doubt or mockery. It was awe. Mister. Taylor cleared his throat. Thank you, Dr. Rivers. That was informative. Aaron nodded. Glad to share, but I should get going. Mars doesn't like to be kept waiting. More laughter. As he passed Mr. Taylor, Aaron paused. I hope your students always feel heard, he said, voice low. Especially the ones who dream big. Then he walked out. But what he left behind, that stayed.